My name is Sahid Badru, and I'm happy and honored to take this masterclass today. Thank you very much, Abdul. We're just going to get started right away. So give me a moment to share my slide. Can everyone hear my voice clearly?
Yes.
All right, thank you for confirming. So you are very much welcome to this masterclass, the AI-powered product management masterclass. And the goal here is to unlock efficiency by demonstrating to you how you can go from idea to MVP with no code. We're going to be using AI tools. It's going to be a very practical session. No fluff. Like Abdul said, we are going to be showing you everything. And then we are going to also be talking about some foundational basics about product management that you should know. It's also important to know that this session or this masterclass is open to everyone, from people who are product managers to people who are aspiring product managers, or people who are aspiring or existing tech founders. You want to start your own startup, or you want to start your own idea, or you always dreamt to start something, but maybe you've been, you don't know how to code or something. Here is an opportunity with AI to be able to go from idea to products. And then also this is open to engineers as well, software engineers, product engineers, people who already have the engineering skills, but they want to be able to use AI and to bridge the gap between feasibility and product management. So they want to be able to understand product thinking. They want to be able to think like product builders by understanding problems before going into solutions. So irrespective of whatever category you fall into, whether you are an aspiring product manager, aspiring tech founder, or an existing product manager, or existing tech founder, or an existing engineer, you are very much welcome. And it doesn't matter your background. You don't have to, even if you don't come from a tech background, you don't come from a technical background, you are going to break everything, down for everyone to understand. And there'll also be room for questions and answers as well, where you can ask questions, and I'll be happy to address them. So let's dive in. So before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Saeed Adebowale Badru. I'm an AI-powered or an AI product leader and builder, and I'm also an educator in the AI and product management space. I come with over 15 years of experience in the tech industry. Started off my career in growth marketing, digital marketing, business analysis, data analytics, project management, and now product management. My area of specialty in product management is data and AI product management. I'm currently the co-founder and product lead of Smarter, an AI-powered reading assistant that helps people develop better reading habits. I'm also a senior product manager at Andela, and I was formerly the analytics product manager at ALX. My expertise cuts across building AI-powered learning products and productivity products. The majority of my experience outside of consulting has been in edtech, SaaS, software as a service, and productivity tools. And the goal, my approach to teaching is always practical, outcome driven. Yes, we focus on some foundational theories and basics, but we dive as soon as possible into real life practical experience. So you're going to watch me build a product from scratch. So welcome once again. Like I said, today is less theory, more shipping. Most product management content drowns into frameworks and theory and never translates into actions. But in this masterclass, you discover how AI and no-code tools can compress months of traditional product work into hours. More importantly, you live with tangible battle-tested workflows you can apply to your next product challenge starting tomorrow or even starting tonight. And this is about outcomes, not just knowledge. And let's build something great together. So what you're going to master today, we're going to be covering PM foundations, that's product management foundations, core principles that work for beginners and seasoned pros alike. You're going to be understanding, if you've never had product management before, you don't know what product management is, don't worry. We're going to be touching the foundations. We're also going to be touching AI fundamentals, We're going to look at prompting techniques. We are going to look at AI as a whole, AI as a differentiator, as a game changer, and how it impacts product management in 2025. Complete life cycle. We are going to look at the product management life cycle. That's what we're going to be using as our guide, in this workshop. So we're going to be looking at what the product management life cycle is, and we are also going to explain what each component is all about. So you witness live demonstrations of a complete research sprint, prototype creation, and MVP development. And then we'll also get a sneak peek into our 12-week AI-powered practical product management course that Abdul talked about earlier. So like I said earlier, we are going to focus on the foundations, then we are going to focus on research. We're going to start with a research sprint. So research sprint means we are going to go from problem, we are going to look into an idea, understand, do some quick research, using AI, and then we are going to go into product strategy, from insights to actionable strategy, and then we are going to prototype and test by doing some live demos with no-code AI tools, and then we are also going to look at prototyping and building and deploying a working product. And then we're also going to look at the complete framework of go-to-market, delivery and analytics. And then we are going to talk about the AI-powered product management course thereafter. So the craft of building value. What is product management? Product management isn't about shipping features. It's about solving real problems for real users within real business constraints. The best product managers or founders understand that their job is about creating measurable value, not just checking items off the roadmap. And this is all about, it's hinged on several foundational components. So number one is I always talk about product management as, it's a career that focuses on understanding problems first, understanding the dynamics of a market, and then leveraging insights from various sources to be able to come up with solutions. So we are going to look at the first part, user journey and jobs to be done, understanding what users are truly trying to accomplish. For us to be able to solve the problem for the users, we need to understand where they're at. We need to see them as humans first. We need to see them as humans. We need to be able to observe, what their journey is like, what their process is like. And we also need to understand what they are trying to accomplish. That's what we call jobs to be done. So when you build a product, your product is actually solving a problem. When people pay for a product, or when people subscribe for a product or a digital product, the goal is to hire a job to be done for them. They are hiring your product to do a job for them. So what is that job to be done? And then what is the journey of the users like? So for instance, if the user wants to go from figuring out what to eat to making the meal, there are several processes the user will take. For instance, checking the internet, coming up with recipes, brainstorming recipes, maybe using ChatGPT, looking at what they have available, their food preferences, their dietary preferences, based on their culture, or their health needs. And then they go shopping, they go to the grocery store, maybe they make a grocery list on their iPhones or on their notepads, and then they shop for those items, and then they begin to cook, and then they begin to enjoy the meal and relish the meal, and then maybe they run out of stuff. So you need to understand the full user journey to be able to really understand where they are coming from and understand what they are trying to accomplish. And then problem framing is all about defining the right problem before jumping into solutions. We always say in product management, don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem. And it's all about understanding the problem and then framing the problem right before solving the problem. Before you say, "Oh, I just thought about an idea, let me start building an app." And it's very easy and tempting in the age of AI to just jump into solutions. But we always say, take a step back. If you want to build a product that people are going to use and people are going to love, focus on understanding the problem, framing the problem right. You might uncover multiple problems, but your job is to sift and sort and validate the problems by going out there to speak to real people. You can conduct surveys, you can conduct user interviews, or you can leverage observations, maybe based on conversations people have been having online. And you can also use AI tools to do this quickly. Also, I always recommend, no matter what technique you are using to, do your discovery or your research, it's always very important to have that human touch, one-on-one human touch, by conducting user interviews to be able to understand, even if you you survey 1,000 people, at least you should be able to speak to at least 5 to 10 people to really understand where they are coming from a deep human perspective. And when you're asking questions, it should be as open-ended as possible, not leading, not trying to come up with a solution and then ask them what they think about the solution. It's going to be a biased feedback you get. So the most important thing is to be as open-minded as possible, to be as objective as possible, and to hear them not from your product perspective, but from the problem from their experience, like their personal experiences. Then you can come up with what solutions to solve. So, but before we come up with solutions, we need to first of all frame the problem properly, and then prioritize the solution. So yes, when you are trying to maybe you do user journey mapping or some other form of ideation, you come up with different types of solutions. And when you come up with different types of solutions, you need to know which one is actually feasible. You need to know which one is most valuable. You need to know which one is, most viable. Those are the three things, or those are the core things we look at as product people. We look at the business viability of the features or the product we are trying to build. We look at the usability, how usable is it in terms of user experience, and then we look at it from the feasibility standpoint. How feasible is it technically? When it comes to feasibility, AI has actually helped a little bit in that space, even though we know that there are still some technical hurdles to cross. So those are the things we look at. So when we are prioritizing, we look at three components, but I'll break them into two. We look at impacts. What is the impact of this feature on the business, on our business, and on our users? And then how much effort will it take to build this thing? So efforts could be seen in terms of technical complexity, could be seen in terms of edge cases, unknowns, especially if you're building AI products. There are it's very, very probabilistic in nature. There are so many edge cases you would encounter. It could be in terms of risk, it could be in terms of costs. Maybe for instance, you're going to be leveraging foundation LLMs, and you have to pay for the API credits. Maybe you're trying to integrate a voice LLM or a voice API into your product and things like that. You have to factor in costs. You also have to factor in time, how much time it will take to implement that. You have to factor in ROI, risk as well, how much risk, and not just risk in terms of, is this thing going to work or not, but also you are dealing with AI here. Till how long will that model be reliable? Till when does it start hallucinating? You have to consider all of that, and you have to be able to use that to prioritize. So we prioritize basically. There are many frameworks to prioritize. We have Moscow, we have RISE, we have ICE, we have Eisenhower matrix, we have Kano model, many models or many frameworks. But at the end of the day, it's not about the framework, it's about why we are prioritizing. All right. So what are we prioritizing for? We are prioritizing for impact or value, and we're prioritizing for efforts. So we have to factor in value. How much value is this going to have? We have to be able to measure it and evaluate it empirically or in an evidence-driven manner. You can't just say, oh, this is a must-have. Why is it a must-have? Why is it a should-have? Why is it a must-have? You should be able to measure it. You should be able to say, okay, this has a higher impact on the business and a higher impact on the users, and this has a medium effort, or or low effort. It's a quick win, something we can easily implement and will have a high impact, versus something that might have a medium impact but has high effort. Things like that. We need to be able to prioritize, and that's one of the most important skills we need to have. And stakeholder alignment. As product managers or as founders or innovation professionals or strategists, we're going to be engaging with different kinds of stakeholders. We have external stakeholders, we have internal stakeholders. Internal stakeholders are people within our organization, like for instance, colleagues in other departments. It could be customer support, it could be our leadership or our management team, it could be your manager, maybe the head of product or the director of product. It could be the customer support, it could be sales, it could be the engineering, it could be design teams. It could also be external stakeholders like the customers, the users, the partners, the vendors, or regulators. If you're in a highly regulated industry like fintech, you could be dealing with lots and lots of stakeholders. So you need to know who your stakeholder is, and you need to get everyone rowing in the same direction. Alignment is very important, because at the end of the day, you need to make sure that everyone is aligned in the same direction, and you are able to use communication skills, excellent communication skills, to drive that. So it's very, very important. And key takeaway from this is that product managers own value creation, not feature delivery. Your goal is not to deliver a feature, or your purpose is not to deliver a feature. Your purpose is to create value. So as a product manager, it's not about building product or building features. It's about solving problems and being able to evaluate, the problem you are solving, using metrics and KPIs. So that is basically the foundation of product management. We're going to look at other things like the core frameworks every product manager should master. In the 12 weeks product management course, we are going to go deep into product management as a whole, and we're also going to go deep into AI as well. So these battle-tested frameworks form the foundation of effective product management. Master this and you would think more clearly about every product decision. Frameworks are good, but I'm not very big on knowing all the frameworks or having all the frameworks in the world, because at the end of the day, it's not about the framework, it's about why the framework, right? So it's not just about the framework, it's about why the framework. So, but these are some frameworks. There are many other frameworks as well, but these are some, I wouldn't even call it framework, I'll call it some terminologies or some concepts, that we should know as product managers. There are many other things to learn as well. If you want to know more about product management foundations, basics, I have a free YouTube video I'll share the link later, or Abdul will share the link maybe later. It's a free YouTube master crash course. It's a 2.5 hour crash course on product management. So if you want to understand the basics, looking at it from a case study view, then you can always go and check that out. So one is problem statements. Like I said, being able to understand, where your users are coming from, understand their journey, understand their jobs to be done, what problems they're having, what pain points they're experiencing, and what they're trying to accomplish. And then being able to frame solutions, frame problems, and then, prioritize solutions. So when you want to frame problems, or when you want to, frame your problem, you need to be able to use a problem statement framework. So for instance, for a user, I want to, who has a particular situation, the problem is facing is this, which causes this impacts, and the success is equal to the metric. So let me use an example. For a reader who loves to read books, for professional and personal development, the problem is that this user doesn't have time to read books, which causes them losing out on, gaining insights professionally and improving themselves. And the success is for us is how they improving their they being able to build better reading habits, and then overall they having an improved life both professionally and personally, or they being in a position to apply what they've learned from the books, or being able to complete books and then apply it into their daily life. So this forces clarity on who you are solving for. So if you look at things from this perspective, you don't just view solutions or metrics from a surface level. You actually look at it from a deep human perspective. Who is the user? What is their situation? What is the pain they are experiencing? And what is the impact that pain is causing? And then what is the success? So the success metric is basically solving that pain and changing the impact from negative to positive. Right. So that's one framework that helps us. So see these frameworks not as template you just use, or it's something that you just memorize or something. See it as something that is a mental template that you apply into the way you think and into the way you approach things, right? So that's the way, just like when we say agile is a way of thinking, agile is a way of working. So see it more as a mental model that helps us to be able to, approach things or approach, product management problems or product problems, in the right way. So hypothesis framework. So anything we do, I always say that it's important to hypothesize everything. Don't always base your decisions on just gut feelings. Yes, we can have gut feelings, but we need to validate it with data. We need to be able to speak to people. We need to be able to do some research. We need to be able to prototype and do usability testing. We need to be able to collect feedback during development, even after development. When we launch, we need to be able to. So why do we validate? We validate because we are basing our decisions off hypothesis. We are experimenting basically. So you build a prototype, you build a simple prototype. You are trying to test or validate an assumption quickly, right? So hypothesis-driven development is one of the best ways to approach building products or solving problems with products, right? So for instance, if we do this, then the user will be able to do this, measured by this, because of this. So that turns assumptions into testable predictions with the success criteria. So you're not just doing guesswork. You're actually being able to have your hypothesis in an easily quantifiable way. And then if it fails, you would be able to trace it back to, okay, maybe the metric was wrong, maybe the reason was wrong, maybe we are solving for the wrong user, or maybe the intervention or the approach or the solution is not valid. So this helps you to know where the problem is if your experiment is not working. All right, so hypothesis framework is very important. The North Star metric. The North Star metric, is very important because it captures your long-term product success and user value. It's basically a metric that all the other metrics are tied to. You understand? So for instance, if you know the game you're playing, maybe you have a product in the attention game, like a social media product, your North Star metric should be centered around, engagement and usability, not just some random metric, right? So for instance, if you are, let's say you're the product manager for Facebook, your North Star metric should be the number of, how much engagement is happening, not just the number of posts that users are posting. Or if you are the product manager for a product like Uber, your North Star metric should not be number of app downloads, because it doesn't really tell anything. It's not actionable. It's not growth driven, and it's not really user centric. Yes, they are downloading the app, but what are they doing with it? What are they trying to accomplish with downloading the app? They are able to book and complete rides. So that is a North Star metric, number of completed rides every week. So those are examples. So it helps the team to align around what matters, and it also helps the entire team to focus on a very important goal. So it aligns everyone to a certain goal. So even if you're trying to prioritize your roadmap, or if you're trying to set KPIs, that everything should be tied to the North Star metric, because the North Star metric is your compass. It points you in the right direction, right? So it's a very important.
Some drama.
Sorry,
I'm going to mute them. Just continue.
All right. So we have other, we have prioritization frameworks as well, like RICE Light prioritization. So RICE is basically an acronym for reach multiplied by impact multiplied by confidence all over effort to get a priority score. So it's a simple scoring system for making tough, prioritization decisions objectively. And I like it because it's very empirical. I know we have Moscow and we have, Eisenhower matrix and others, but this RICE prioritization technique is a very simple technique that assigns numerical value to every component that we are prioritizing, every component that we are using as our basis of prioritization. For instance, reach. How much of your user base does this feature that we are building, does it have, is it going to reach, or is it going to add value to, right? So for instance, you have multiple user bases for your product. You have like, 3 or 4 different personas. Is it going to reach 50% of your user segment, or is it going to reach 30% of your user segments, or your multiple user segments? That's one, reach. So it helps us, especially when you have various user segments for your product, or different types of personas for your product. Number 2 is impact. How much impact does it have? Remember, we talked about value and efforts, or impact and efforts. How much impact does that feature have on the business and on the users? So there are 2 lenses we look at impact. We look at impact from the lens of the user or the customer using the product or paying for the product. And then we also look at the impact on the business. That's the organization, either your company or the company you work for. So you have to look at those 2 things. And then you also have to look at the confidence. How confident are we about these estimates? So you double check with your stakeholders. How confident are we about these estimates? What are you basing that impact decision on? Are you basing it on gut feeling, or are you basing it on actual research insights, maybe during your discovery sessions or your surveys, or based on specific insights from specific stakeholders, maybe customer support and things like that. So what are you basing that on? So what's the confidence? And then how much effort? You divide it by effort. Effort is your denominator. How much effort will it take from an engineering perspective and from a cost perspective to actually bring that feature to life? And then you assign a priority score to all of those, and then you rank the ones with the highest priority score. So that's a very good scoring system. And then if you want to use Moscow as well, which is also a simple prioritization framework, Moscow, the way I always teach Moscow is that, yes, Moscow is an acronym for must have, should have, could have, and won't have. So your must haves are your non-negotiables. You must work on those. Your should haves they are important as well, but they are not top priority. Your could haves would be nice to haves. They are not. If there's if you have bandwidth, then you could explore, but it's not really priority. And then your won't have, you're not going to be working on it in the current scope. And why do we prioritize, especially on the high level requirements? We prioritize so that we can have something called a roadmap. The roadmap is basically like a map of what you and your team are going to be working on now, and what you and your team are going to be working on in the future. It can come in different sizes, shapes, and forms. We have theme-based roadmaps. We have time-based roadmaps like quarterly roadmaps, annual roadmaps, and then we have outcome-based roadmaps. Those are flexible. Those are the ones I always prefer to use, because you really don't know what is going to happen until you get to the market, until users use your product, and then you get feedback. So you are keeping your mind, everything open-ended. You don't want to plan that, we are going to build this feature by Q4, and then Q3 comes, and then the market is telling you something else. You need to respond to the market. You need to be agile and flexible to respond to the market, right? So it's not just about prioritizing. It's about prioritizing in a very flexible manner. So outcome-based focuses on now, next, and later. What are we focusing on now? What are we focusing on next? And what are we focusing on later? Right. So if you've not been able to solve, if what you've prioritized now is not yet solving the problem, then you shouldn't be going into the next thing. Right. So because like I said, you're not just trying to build features, you're trying to solve problems for the users. And then let me go back to Moscow. So when I do Moscow prioritization, how do I know this is a must-have? Right? How do I know this is a should-have? And it's always very important to use evidence to validate or to prioritize things. And what I usually do is that I look at two things. I look at impact and I look at efforts. Impact on the users and impact on the business. And then I look at efforts. So I group it into high impact, medium impact, low impact. So when I look at each of the features, okay, this one is high impact, this one is medium impact, this one is low impact. And then I have another column, effort. How much effort does it take to build this feature? High effort, medium effort, low effort. And then I'm able to come up with, is this high impact, low effort? Is this high impact, medium effort? Is this medium impact, high effort? And all of that. Then I prioritize the high impact, low effort first, the high impact, medium effort, then the high impact, high effort, and before I now go to the medium impact. And then I don't even consider the low impact at all. So that is how I use Moscow. So when I want to look at must-haves, the must-have should be the high impact items, basically. Especially the high impact, low effort, and the high impact, medium effort, because they are quick wins. They can quickly be implemented and they have high impact on the users. And then you can also look at the high impact, high effort, because it's going to take some time, or it's going to take some resources to build, right? But you also have to look at it in terms of impact. And that's why RISE, is always very good, because RISE, you're actually assigning a number. You're not just looking at it based on high, low. You're assigning numbers. So what is the impact score? What is the confidence score? What is the effort score? And it's more empirical. So no framework is better than the other. What matters is the foundations or the reasons or the rationale behind the decisions you make, right? So irrespective of the prioritization method you are using, make sure that you are accounting for impact and you're accounting for efforts. So let's now move on to another very important concept, which is called acceptance criteria. So these are clear testable conditions that define when a requirement is complete. And this is very important in the age of AI, especially the fact that you can easily build a product or a prototype, a working MVP with AI. But the problem now comes to testing. Testing, debugging, making sure it meets the acceptance criteria. That is where where the rubber meets the road. And if you don't have clear testable conditions that define when a requirement is complete. It's going to be very difficult. You can think, oh, this is done, and then you ship it. And then you find out that there are some issues in terms of the user experience. So, and this helps to eliminate ambiguity and ensures everyone understand what is done. So from the engineer's perspective, right, the engineer might have done his own part or their own parts by writing the code properly, by doing their QA testing and everything. However, from an end user perspective, it might not be usable enough, or it might not be, the user experience might not be the best, right? You as a product manager or as the product owner, your job is to test or to carry out UAT from the perspective of the end user, and then you have what do you use to determine if this has been done or not? You have acceptance criteria. Those acceptance criteria are the conditions that it must meet before you can say it's complete. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is the elephant in the room, the product management lifecycle. So here we are going to look at the entire lifecycle of the product management, work itself, or what we do as product managers. And this guides us in how, we navigate. Basically, this is our workflow. And we call it a life cycle because it's not linear. It doesn't end. It's a continuous loop. So it all starts with discovery. So discovery basically is focused on, market research, understanding the market we are operating in, understanding the problem space, the landscape, understanding the competitors, understanding the market size. We do market sizing, we do competitor analysis. We understand the landscape of where we are operating. Let's say, for instance, we're trying to solve a problem for, new mothers. We need to understand that space. Or we're trying to solve a problem in healthcare or finance. We need to understand then opportunity identification. We also need to be able to identify opportunities in that space. And then we do user research. User research is basically what helps us to understand problems deeply and validate the problems that we might have assumed that we've observed. So yes, we might observe problems, through observation, but how do we validate? That's when you actually do things like user interviews, surveys, to be able to validate those assumptions about the problems. And then define is basically where you define the problem and then come up with solutions through a process called ideation. And this is where we come up with, first of all, we understand the user journey. We map the user journey, try to understand, okay, these are all the processes or the steps the user will take to achieve this from point A to point B to point C. These are the actions they will take. This is how they will feel at each stage. Of course, we must have gotten that insight from our discovery activities. And then these are the pain points that they're experiencing. And then these are the opportunities to solve these problems. Those can be raw ideas. And then we brainstorm, come up with those solutions. Ideally, the best way to do this is with our engineers and with our designers, not just in silo, right? Engaging engineers at this stage is very, very important because they have ideas of what can be built and what can be. This is, one of the reasons why products fail when engineers are not involved early in the process. So during definition, we also do something called product strategy. That's where we define our vision. We come up with goals, specifically OKRs, and they must be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We set our KPIs, and define the metrics we use to measure those KPIs. And then we also create our product requirements, which are basically, high level to low level requirements. We start with epics, which are initiatives or projects, and then we break them down into features. And then for us to be able to understand it from a user-centric perspective, for instance, if we say, I want to build, a screen sharing feature, how do we write it from the perspective of a user? Then we break it down into user story. As a user, I want to be able to share a tab in my screen so that I will be able to, easily demonstrate concepts or easily, collaborate with my colleagues and still maintain my privacy. So that could be a user story. Another user story could be, as a user, I want to be able to collaborate with my team, share my screen, and get them to hear, whatever is playing. Maybe, for instance, a product demo, without compromising my privacy. my PC privacy or something. So that's just an example. So you have to break it down into user stories, and then each user story have to you have to properly define describe the user story. You have to be able to write the context. Why are we doing it? What are we doing? And then you have to be able to write the acceptance criteria. So what are those testable conditions that when we test it as an end user that it must meet? And then when we write out all those things, then we move on to breaking them down into tasks and having definition of done for them. Those tasks are basically tickets or requirements that the engineers will work on. For instance, you want to build the screen sharing feature. The engineer might need to write some lines of code for something. They might need to do this, they might need to do that. All of that needs to be, they might need to write some edge functions and some other things. They might need to integrate with a particular backend or write some make some API calls and things like that. So all those, and that's where you need your engineer as well when you are doing something called backlog grooming or backlog refinement. You need to be able to break down those user stories into technical requirements or technical tasks for the engineers to work on, and you need their input for that as well. And then after we do all these things in the definition stage or the product strategy stage, the next thing for us is to then finally, before we move on, we have to create our roadmap. Our roadmap is basically what tells us what we are focusing on now and in the future. So for us to be able to start working on now, we don't just jump in and start building. We need to validate, we need to test. So we need to test and validate those ideas or those requirements or those features that we want to build, right? So we take those features that we've prioritized for now, and then we design. We can start with low fidelity prototypes called wireframes. Before we do that, we can also map the user flow. We design the user flow diagrams. We understand point A, point B, point C within our product. How is the user going to move and achieve different things? We can map that mentally. You can use flowcharts. You can write it down, and then you can also design the wireframes. So when you design those wireframes, you are basically designing to test the user experience and the structure of the platform. You're not testing the user interface. If you don't want to go a step further, you can now design medium fidelity. We used to call it high fidelity back then, but I'll call it medium fidelity now because we have prototypes, right? So that is when we now add colors. We make it look more, more clear. We make it look more closer to the main product. So it has this, the styling, it has the colors, it has the images, everything looks exactly like the real product, but it's just a design. We call it a mock-up, right? And then back in the days, you could actually animate those mock-ups. They are just graphic, visual designs. You animate them using, prototyping tools where you put hotspots so that when you tap on one image, it opens another image, and then you use it for usability testing. But now AI has changed the game. You can actually just go into a tool like Lovable, V0, or Bolt. Just give it a prompt or give it your specs or your PRD, and then it builds something for you, and then you can quickly test it within minutes. Conduct usability tests. But the goal of validation is to be able to test your ideas quickly and get feedback. And then based on the feedback, then you go into actual implementation. That is when you actually build and deploy, for production. This is basically focused on, you are not just building to test now, you are building for people to use. And not just people, but, at scale. So, and you can do it in different ways. You can say, you know what, let's just build and deploy a simple MVP now that maybe can at least onboard at least the first 1,000 users, and then later we can scale that. But it's always better to plan, to work with an engineer to plan for, what that's going to look like, what infrastructure you should be using. Are you using a scalable infrastructure, especially the backend? Building the front end is not a problem, but the back end, you need to make sure you are using a scalable infrastructure so that you can actually scale from maybe 100 users to 1,000 users to 1,000, 10,000 users without issues. And also security as well. These are things that you have to put into consideration, because if people are going to be using this thing live, they're going to be providing their personal data. We need to make sure that the security is also put into consideration as well. Credentials are not exposed, security is airtight, data management, all of these things, you need to understand it clearly. So we are going to look at demos basically around research, validation, and implementation shortly. And then after you've been able to, so you're going to, the way we build products in in tech is that we don't just say we want to implement and start building. No, we break it into small time frames called sprints. And then we do it in a flexible manner. We focus on small increments. We build, we test, we evaluate, and then we do something called sprint review, where a sprint could be 1 week short, it could be 2 weeks short, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 4 weeks, but it's usually between 1 or 2 weeks. So within that 2 weeks, you say, okay, this is what we want to focus on. We want to focus on onboarding. We want to focus on authentication. We want to focus on this, we want to focus on that. You log in, you build, the team builds, they focus on the sprint, they build, they test, and then they share it with the stakeholders for feedback, and then they use that feedback to improve. So it helps to inspect and adapt, changing requirements. So if anything changes, if there's a new requirement, maybe a new requirement or something changes, maybe customers prefer a new feature or they prefer the feature. Maybe we initially assume that we want to build it this way and there's a different way customers prefer it, or the stakeholders give us some updates, then we can always adjust easily rather than plan for 6 months and then we start building, we don't involve anybody. And then after 6 months, we realize that, the clients or the stakeholders or the users don't want what we built. And then we have to be going back and forth. So that's why we do things in an agile way. We break it into small requirements, and then we take those small time frames, and then we build, we test, we measure, and then we continue to improve. And then eventually, once we have an actual release, maybe like an MVP, a full-fledged product, like maybe a suite of key features that we want to launch, then we release the product, and that's what we call launch. So that is when the product goes from our development lab or our development environment into a live production environment, and people actually using it. The public actually has access to this. It's also called go-to-market. And as product managers, we are responsible for designing a launch strategy or a go-to-market strategy or a release strategy. And it comes in different sizes, shapes, and forms. A release might not necessarily be a big event or a big launch. It could be as simple as running a beta test. Having, let's say, for instance, before you launch, you already built a wait list of maybe 100 people. And then you reach out to those 100 people that, inviting you to the beta launch of this app or this product. They test it, you collect feedback from them, and then you improve on it. And then gradually you continue to, open it up to the public, right? So that could be a launch. A launch could be you announce it on producthunt.com, or you announce it on LinkedIn, and then you ask people to try it out. And then, they try it out for free for a few months. And then based on the feedback you get, you start adding things to it. You start, you start monetizing. Maybe you put a paywall for some features and things like that. And then you continue to iterate continuously. And then as you launch the product, you're not just launching, you have to measure the performance of the product. So that means you have to have KPIs that you're going to be measuring against. You have to be able to set up analytics tools that can actually collect data on user behavior. And then you also have to have a way of collecting qualitative data, like maybe surveys, in-app surveys, like customer satisfaction surveys, NPS surveys, to understand how users are satisfied or understand the sentiment of users with your product. Customer satisfaction surveys are being used to measure the satisfaction of customers. It's usually, I'm sure you must have used products or you must have gotten emails where they say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you satisfied with a particular feature or with a particular feature? That's what you call CSAT or customer satisfaction survey. And then we have the NPS, which is a net promoter score survey. That is actually used to measure loyalty. It's also used to measure satisfaction, but it doesn't give us the full picture like customer satisfaction. The NPS could tell us that, yes, it usually comes in this form. On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 5, how willing are you to recommend this product to someone else? So if you are willing to recommend the product to someone else, then that shows that you love the product, you are getting value from the product, you are loyal to the product. But the challenge with that is that what if, I love the product because I'm satisfied with 80% or 70% of the features, but the remaining 30%, I have some, friction or I'm not satisfied. You can't get that from an NPS survey, but a CSAT survey will tell you, okay, this is where this user likes, this is the part of the product the user enjoys. This is the part of the product the user is not really having, a good time with, or is having some challenges with, or they're having some challenges with, right? So that gives you the full picture to really understand the customer experience with the product. So we always say that don't limit yourself to NPS alone. Combine NPS with CSAT to be able to fully measure qualitatively, and then combine it with analytics. Analytics tells you what is going on. For instance, you want to measure the daily active users, how many people are actually using the product, which is a sign of engagement. You want to measure the weekly active users. You want to measure activation rates, how many users have actually engaged with, the product for the first time and have gotten value from the product, or have, how many users have converted. Maybe for instance, they sign up for a free trial and then they move on to a paid trial. For them to move on to a paid trial, they must have gotten value from the product first, right? So that is always the aha moment. That is the sweet spot that, we must always look out for when it comes to when we launch a product to the market first. So that sweet spot is called the activation. That is when the user actually gets a taste of value from the product. And then that drives retention, because when they use the product, they will always continue to use the product. We don't want people to come to the product, use the product once and then go. That's not going to be value for us. For us, we want users to continue to use the product. That's retention. So how do we, measure retention? We look at a couple of things: engagement metrics, and we also look at how many users are continuously using the products. How many of them, continuously use the product after the first use over a period of time. And then we also look at metrics like churn. How many of them are leaving the products after the first use? Those are very important metrics, right? And then we also use to also enhance acquisition of users. We look at areas like referral loops, viral loops, to be able to create that, especially when our NPS is very high, to be able to create that viral effect of people naturally inviting other people to our product. For instance, Canva. A lot of us heard about Canva through friends. Some of the tools we use, like the tool I use for my slideshow, is called Gamma. I heard about it on LinkedIn. I tried it out, tested it. I got value. I was able to make my first presentation and it was wonderful. I got positive feedback. And then I continued using it, and I continued, they told me that, oh, if you tell other people about it, you get free AI credits. They get free AI credits. And I continued doing that. And over time, I got so much value that I started paying for the product and I became a paid user. So that's just an example. And product managers measure this, or product teams. It might not, the title might not be product manager. It might be the co-founder. It might be the growth lead, or whatever it is. The goal is to be able to measure what is going on. How are users using the product? Where are the friction points? You can look at it from a funnel approach. Where are the drop-off points? The drop-off points are the acquisition stage, the activation stage, retention stage, referral stage, or revenue stage. So you have to look at all these things, and then you have to be able to understand what is going on. Are people really getting value from this product or not? Is your retention increasing or decreasing? And then based on that, you'll be able to ask new questions. Okay, why is our retention dropping by 5% every week? And then that's when you go back to discovery to actually carry out research, to talk to users. Maybe you set up, in-app surveys, or you ask your users if they, send an email to them, which of them is interested in helping them, with a user research interview, and then you conduct interviews with them, ask them questions, or you do some further digging into it, or you make some improvements, or you run some A/B tests, and then you see if their adoption or their engagement is actually improved, like what Instagram and so many of these, products teams do. So sometimes they move some features they change the direction of some of the features. Sometimes they move things around. Sometimes they change some things, and then they are actually monitoring how users are, engaging with those things, and then they stick to the one that works more. So those are the different things that we do. A lot of things we do in the measure stage is actually more of analytics, and then we for us to know why that thing is happening, then we go back to discovery. Measurement or analytics tells us what is going on, but to understand why, we have to go back to discovery. So it's a continuous loop. We discover, we define, we validate, we implement, we launch, we measure, and we go back to discover. And everything is hinged around a concept called continuous iteration, which is about build, measure, and learn. So when you implement something, you need to measure it, and then you need to learn from it, and then you need to, continue to iterate. So that's basically that. So this product management lifecycle is basically a map that gives us an idea of what exactly we are doing, throughout the product's development process. It's usually confused with the product lifecycle. They are not the same thing. The product lifecycle is a completely different concept. It's basically the evolution of a product over time. For instance, when you've not launched the product at all, is at the development stage, and then you first introduce it to the market. It's called introduction, and then you achieve product market fit. It gets into the growth stage, And then from the growth stage, it moves into the maturity, and then the decline stage. So products go through this over a period of time, and the stage of the life cycle you are determines what you should be focusing on, right? So, but that's a subject for another day. So that is that for the product management life cycle. So let's move on. I know there's going to be time for question and answer, so don't worry. If you have a question, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we are going to take them one after the other. So now let's look at the AI essentials for product managers. I need to be watchful of time. So AI isn't magic, and I'm sure most of us here are not new to the concept of AI. Excuse me. AI is known as artificial intelligence, right? Some people call it augmented intelligence. So AI is basically a concept that is basically a technology that has been around for a while. It has evolved over the decades, from the 1950s all the way till the 2000s, and it started off with simple statistical models to machine learning, and now we have large language models, which has ushered has opened the gates for generative AI, which is what we use today, which is basically a form of AI technology where we can actually prompt an AI model or a large language model or a small language model, and it gives us an output. And one of the models, or let me say a model that has, or an architecture that has made that happen, is called the transformer architecture. But I don't want to go into the technical details of AI. I'm just going to talk about how AI relates to product management. We must have heard the term AI product management, right? So AI product management, I wish I had the diagram, but unfortunately I don't. So there are two categories, broad categories of AI product managers, or AI related product managers. Let me use that term. So we have AI product managers. That's people who actually build AI products, or people who actually build AI functionalities into products. That means they build AI products that have AI capabilities. And then there are people who are AI-powered product managers. Those are product managers who use AI to improve their workflow or to improve their process. So you are working as a product manager, you do all of these things, discovery, definition, validation, implementation, launch, and analytics. You use AI tools to aid your work, to make you more efficient. So those are the people we call AI-powered product managers. In the future, in the next, in the future, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, every product manager is going to be an AI. It doesn't matter what you specialize in. Every product manager is going to be an AI-powered product manager, meaning that virtually all the products we are going to be using to do different things in our workflow is going to be AI-powered, right? So we need to be able to know how to use these tools to be more effective. And it's actually changing the landscape now, because a lot of careers have been impacted. Fortunately, product management is not going anywhere, because it's not just being able to use tools or being able to perform repetitive actions. It's all about being able to think, being able to synthesize inputs from different sources, and being able to make judgment calls, being able to use soft skills like communication, collaboration, alignment, prioritization skills. These are not skills that AI actually can replicate right now. These are human skills. So being able to combine this to making the right decisions is very, very important. And another part is that it's going to be it's becoming easier to build products. It's becoming easier to use AI to just code anything, build anything. But at the end of the day, we are going to experience something called the AI boom, just like we had the .com boom in the late 90s and early 2000s, where everyone was just launching an internet company, but a lot of them collapsed and a lot of them failed. We also had the crypto boom as well. But the problem with booms is that everybody just rushes in and starts building things, and at the end of the day, a lot of them fail. Why? Because there's no value, right? So where product managers come in is, we are not building for the sake of building. We are building to solve a problem. So is this thing really adding value? Is this thing really solving a problem? So we actually are like the middle, we are like the bridge between problems and solutions. So we are in any team, either core AI products, applied AI products, our job is to make sure we account for value and we direct the teams and the stakeholders in the right direction, making sure that we are building what matters, what is valuable, what is viable, and what is feasible, right? So, but we don't work alone. We work, by collaborating with other people. So, product management is not going anywhere. or any skill that involves coordination and collaboration with people, project management, business analysis, these skills are not going anywhere. But how can we use AI to be more, to be more competitive and to be more valuable? It's becoming highly in demand now. A lot of employers are now demanding that AI use, even in universities, like Nexford University, for instance, their, AI use is even compulsory for students at master's level and bachelor's level, right? Companies are beginning to, even in Microsoft, if you're a product manager, for instance, and you want to get a job in Microsoft or any of these big tech companies, one part of their interview now involves vibe coding. They want to be able to see how you can use AI to actually code or to build an application. They have vibe coding interviews now. Shopify, for instance, Shopify CEO earlier in the year, there was a leaked memo that stated that every team must be able to show that they can use AI, and before they increase their headcount, they must be able to show that they can use AI to solve that problem. They can't use AI to solve that before they actually. So that means that AI is here to stay, right? So this is why it is important for all product managers or founders to be AI powered. That means they should know how to use AI to improve their workflow or to work more effectively and smart. And that's what we're going to be doing in the 12 weeks program. And then secondly, we have AI product managers. Those are people who build AI products, and then they are broken into two categories. We have the core AI product managers. Those are the people that build the foundation models, because AI, the AI value chain is divided into different levels. We have the foundation and the infrastructure. The infrastructure is basically, the hardware that powers the AI models, like the GPUs. NVIDIA is, the leading company in that. And then we now have the models. That's the large language models, with hundreds of billions of parameters, which cost millions and billions of dollars to train, right? So it's not small projects. And the kind of companies that are leading the way in this is OpenAI, Anthropic, that really, the creators of Claude. We have Microsoft, of course, they basically invested in OpenAI. So I would say, they are still like an extension of OpenAI is an extension of Microsoft. We have Google, with their Gemini model. We have Meta. So these are the guys playing the big games when it comes to the models. So we have the foundation model. So not every company can actually build a model, right? Even if you're going to build, maybe it's going to be a simple machine learning model. But when we're talking about generative AI, it's not really accessible to everyone. It's the big guns that have hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars can actually build those kind of models. However, there's another level which is called the applied AI. The applied AI side is where most of us fall into, and that is where you actually leverage those large language models, the OpenAI models, the Gemini models from Google, or the Claude models, to build AI-powered capabilities into existing products or into new products. So, for instance, you build an online tutoring app that uses AI. You are not building the model. What you are doing basically is that you are using an API, to connect with that model's, capability, or to integrate that model's capability into your products. So, for instance, if I want to build a smart meal planning app, I'm going to build it. I'm going to design it, and then I'm going to use maybe OpenAI's API or Claude's API or some other, or if I want to build something that allows me to be able to, use AI voices, I might be using, Gemini text to speech. I might be using 11 Labs or any of those other, voice models, right? Or OpenAI voice models. So that is what we call applied AI. So product managers that build products, like for instance, Gamma that I'm using for my presentation, or tools that end users use, but they leverage other third-party foundation models. They are called applied AI products, right? So we have applied AI product managers. There's product managers that build AI-powered products. And then we have foundation product managers or core product managers. Core AI product managers. So core AI products are like the models. So for instance, if you are a product manager for GPT-4 or GPT-5, GPT-5 is the model. ChatGPT is the application. They are two different things. ChatGPT is the user experience, or that is the interface that we interface with. So a product manager for ChatGPT as an app is an applied AI product manager, while a product manager of the GPT model itself is a core or research AI product manager or a core AI product manager. and they require two different skill sets. As an applied AI product manager, of course, you need to understand the basics of machine learning. You need to understand, some, you need to be able to write evaluation frameworks. I am an applied AI product manager. I'm not a core AI product manager, even though I've built some core AI products in the past, with my team. They are more machine learning products, recommender systems. They are not large language models. So I've done a little bit of core and data product management. But most of what I do now is applied AI product management. So you build an actual product and you integrate AI into it, right? So that is applied AI. Then the person who is building the GPT is somebody that must be very, very knowledgeable, on core AI, foundations. And when I mean core AI foundations, the AI is divided into two. There's applied AI and there's research AI. That means you must probably have maybe a master's in data science. You must be able to understand different kinds of models. You must be able to understand the mathematics behind that. So that's core AI product managers. There are people who have very strong technical backgrounds, and there are people who actually maybe have been data scientists before. So that is a different thing entirely. But majority of us fall into the applied AI product managers. So if you want to be an applied AI product manager, we have different. We would have something for that in the future as well. But right now, whether you're an applied AI product manager or you are a AI powered product manager, we're going to be looking at the skills that you should be, you should have to be able to leverage AI, because you still need AI to build these things, right? So AI isn't magic, like I said. It's a powerful tool that excels at specific tasks while having clear limitations. Understanding both is crucial for effective product management. So let's look at the strengths of AI. AI can be generative AI, in this context. Generative AI can be used to generate ideas and content. So you can use it to generate, text content. You can use it to generate images, like the Nano Banana model from Google. You can generate videos with VO3. You can also summarize complex information. You can, create infographics, insight graphs, and things like that. You can also classify and organize data. You can do data analysis with ChatGPT or Claude. You can also suggest solutions and alternatives. You can do research with it as well. So what are the limitations? We need to understand the limitations of generative AI. And as we know, generative AI models are evolving. The GPT-5 is a major improvement. The Claude Sonnet is a major improvement. The Gemini 2.5 Pro is a major improvement compared to the previous models we used to have in the past. But we need to also understand that these tools or these technologies have their own limitations. So that means that is where we come in to be able to, put our own human, edge or human touch into it, or into whatever we are doing with it. So poor judgment and decision making. Sometimes AI hallucinates. AI can make poor judgment. If you are not careful, you need to verify. So there are three components of using AI tools. There's the input or the prompts. You have to give it the prompts, and then there's the actual execution of the prompt to generate the output, and then there's the verification. So we humans, we have to be good in two areas. We have to be good in prompting, and we have to be good in verification. However, AI can also prompt. There are tools that can actually use to create and refine prompts now. So prompting is becoming, it's not as highly important as verification. So where we have to be very strong in is verifying the output. And that means we have to have like acceptance criteria, or we have to have like evaluation, criteria to evaluate what AI is doing. And that's why we need to know what we are doing. If we don't know anything that we are doing, or we don't have context and we just use AI, then we are not going to get, like, for instance, when you are trying to build an app or prototype an MVP, develop an MVP, if you don't have specific requirements documented, AI can just give you anything, and there's nothing to measure against. But if you actually have evaluation frameworks or evaluation criteria, then you'll be able to verify what AI is doing for you, right? So it's very, very important. And then number two is limited ethical reasoning. AI doesn't really have strong, even though to some extent it does, but generative AI doesn't have very strong ethical capabilities at the moment. It's not as aware as we might want. So there's a problem of bias. There's a problem of fairness. You have to be able to give it some context, and that's why we use very advanced prompting techniques. We have to give it as much context as possible. We have to use things like MCP, Model Context Protocol, especially when we are dealing with enterprise-related, use cases, to be able to give it context so that it doesn't, number one, it doesn't go against the guardrails, or give it guardrails so it doesn't go out of bounds. And then also we have to also make sure that, for instance, we are trying to analyze data sets, right? We need to give it different, we need to let it know that there are different demographics. For instance, we are trying to analyze literacy rates. We have to consider males, we have to consider females, we have to consider people with different economic backgrounds, if you're using the AI to do data analysis, for instance. So those are things that you have to put into consideration. And then you also have to you have to know that there is likely going to be bias in outputs. So you have to always check all those things as well. Privacy and security concerns as well. When you are using generative AI tools, especially the public ones, make sure that you don't put in personally identifying information or PII. That's one thing I always do. If I conduct a user interview, for instance, and I want to provide the insight or the feedback, I use AI to summarize the notes. But if I want to provide the feedback to generative AI tools like ChatGPT, I'm going to make sure I remove the names of the individuals and the personally identifying information and put a hypothetical name and then feed it to ChatGPT. It's very, very important. Privacy. And then if you are at work, don't use don't use your personal ChatGPT or public ChatGPT for confidential, or feed those tools with confidential information. Very, very important, especially if you're in a very competitive landscape. So if you want to use, if you want to maybe analyze data sets, very confidential data sets. If your organization, for instance, has an enterprise AI plan, for instance, Gemini, then you can use that, right? You can analyze data and do all those things. But if you are going to be using your personal AI tool, don't put in confidential information into it, because these guys have the capacity, even though they say there's privacy and all of that. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman recently said there's a loophole in the AI space. And the problem is that he, as a CEO, if the government or if the FBI, or government agencies ask for data on specific users of ChatGPT, they are obliged to provide that information about that user to them, what the user has been doing on ChatGPT, what the user has been searching. People use ChatGPT for both personal and professional stuff, right? So for him to be saying that if the law enforcement or if the government asks for data on a specific user, then they are obliged to provide it. That's the law right now. But he envisions a future where users can actually have full autonomy over what is allowed to be shared on it. And he's expressing that concern, but his hands are tied, especially with the way things are going on in the US right now. So, but that's a talk for another day. So it is very important to, be aware of the privacy and security concerns with these tools and make sure that we use these tools responsibly. So let's look at AI acceleration across the product management lifecycle. AI acts as a force multiplier at every stage of product development. Yeah, what it creates the most impact on for busy product manager. If you are a very busy product manager, AI can help you with research. So generate survey questions, analyze user feedback, create user personas. AI can assist you with that. AI can also assist you in product strategy. That's during definition, can do market analysis, competitive research, hypothesis generation. It can also be helpful as well in discovery. You can also use AI for prototyping, like generating copy, like if you are building a web application or a website, the kind of content, it can help you generate copy. Of course, you need to put your human input as well. You can create test scenarios for your usability testing sessions. It can also help you suggest improvements, and then for development, it can help you write user stories. It can help you create acceptance criteria. It can help you draft documentation, and it can also help you code, right? So for launch, it can help you draft marketing copy, create FAQ content, plan communication, build website copy, and all of those things. And then for analytics, it can help you summarize data. If you are getting data, maybe you have data in your spreadsheet or you are exporting data from your analytics tools, you can actually help you identify patterns, suggest optimization areas. And most of these tools, like Pendo, Amplitude, Google Analytics, have AI-powered capabilities as well. So the key is to knowing when to use AI as an accelerant and when human judgment is irreplaceable. Today's demos will show you exactly where each shines. So we have very, very limited time. So I know we've used about 1 hour. So we are just going to go straight into the case study. So our case study we are using for today's session is called TaskBuddy. And what is TaskBuddy? TaskBuddy is an AI-assisted daily priority tool that helps overwhelmed professionals focus on what matters most. So what problem are we trying to solve? Yes, this is a case study that has already been remade, but if we are approaching it in the real world, we are going to focus, before we start talking about what the product can do, the focus is to identify the problem. So what's the problem? People start each day with endless task lists and no clear sense of what to tackle first. Analysis paralysis leads to procrastination and stress. This is a problem that I've encountered myself. So the solution is that TaskBuddy uses AI to surface the top 3 tasks you should tackle first based on urgency, impact, and work patterns. So if I was to approach this, the first thing I would do is, this thing is not, so I should be able to scroll. It's not allowing me to scroll. So sorry. So the first thing I would do, using AI, like let's assume that, I'm a founder, I'm trying to build something, I'm trying to, launch something. Yes, in the traditional product management sense, if you are a one man, you don't have the luxury of doing everything you do if you're in a company as a product manager. So you have to do things very fast and you have to be able to, improvise and adapt. So the first thing I would do is a research sprint. So I would do a quick research by validating the problem and identifying the target users. So TaskBuddy, we are going to do some demonstration, and then the next thing is also prototype. So I'll create a testable wireframe and user flow diagram. With that, we can use ChatGPT or we can use a tool called Visible. But because of time, we might use ChatGPT. And then, or we might use Nano Banana. I've not used Nano Banana before, but we can try it out. And then we can also build a shippable working version that users can try. So we can just use AI to actually build our prototype, and we can also use AI to build our MVP. So let's go into that. So our first demo is that we are going to do some research using AI. So the goal is to validate the user need and identify target segments in under 15 minutes. So this replaces weeks of traditional desk research. This is very good when you're a one-man founder or you are a one-man, product person. So this is the prompts. It's called the magic prompt, even though there is no such thing as magic prompts. But we are going to do some demonstrations now where you'll be acting, we would ask the AI to act as an experienced market researcher for an AI-powered task prioritization through called TaskBuddy. We'll ask it to create comprehensive analysis, which includes 5 distinct segments with demographics, their primary jobs to be done, their current pain points and frustration, existing alternatives they use, estimated willingness to pay, ranges formats as a detailed table with actionable insights. And the expected output is a structured table covering remote workers, students, freelancers, executives, and entrepreneurs with their specific needs, pain points, current tools, and price sensitivity. And why this works is that it creates a credible testing starting point that would traditionally take weeks of surveys, interviews, and market analysis. Not perfect, but actionable within minutes. So we call it a desk research, desk-based research. So this is going to be the foundation of all subsequent product decisions, and we validate the most promising segments through targeted user interviews and surveys. So you are not just going to do this for the sake of the class, we are going to do this, but in the bootcamp or in the 12 weeks program, you're actually going to go out there to validate it by actually doing surveys and user interviews. But because of time, we're just going to look at this quickly. So before we move into research and strategy, I would love us to quickly jump onto our browser and then let's start building. So let's start researching. So can we still see my screen? Sorry, Abdul, can you confirm what you can see on my screen?
On the AI-powered masterclass.
Okay, is it the slides you are seeing or you are seeing something else?
You can see
You're on your browser now.
camera up.
Sorry?
You're on your
Are you
Google browser now.
Okay, okay, you can see the Google browser. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's switch. Sorry.
If you need me to, I can share my screen and do the demo, or you can just.
No, don't worry. I'm using multiple screens. That's why. So it's causing a bit of discrepancy.
All right.
It's weird. It's not supposed to show this. Anyways, let's continue. So the first thing I'll do before I go to what do we call it? Before I go to ChatGPT, the first thing I will do is go to I will go to a tool called Perplexity. So let's go to perplexity.ai. All right, so the first thing I will do is that the problem I'm trying to identify is I have problem hypothesis that people start each day with endless task lists with no clear sense of what to tackle first. Analysis this is the results of analysis. This is due to which leads to procrastination and stress. I want to validate this hypothesis. Carry out comprehensive research. As a market researcher, carry out comprehensive research to understand, validate this problem using reliable sources. Let's see what it's going to give us. Although I should have used deep research for that, but because of time, deep research will take time. So the research gathered so far reveals several relevant insights related to problem hypotheses about people starting their day. So to-do list helps increase productivity by allowing individuals to prioritize tasks and organize what to tackle first, reducing stress and improving time management. Physically crossing off tasks provides motivation and a sense of accomplishment. However, the presence of too many tasks can be overwhelming without clear prioritization. Analysis paralysis and its effects. Analysis paralysis is a psychological phenomenon where individuals become overwhelmed by decision-making, leading to excessive contemplation and difficulty making choices. It stems from the fear of making wrong decisions, perfectionism, information overload, and clear goals, and lack of clear goals. This state leads to procrastination, missed opportunities, stress, anxiety, reduced confidence, and impaired personal and professional growth. Psychological and cognitive factors. underlying cognitive biases, confirmation bias, paradox of choice, and anchoring bias contribute to analysis paralysis by skewing judgments and increasing difficulty in decision making. Fear of failure and negative outcomes magnify decision hesitancy. Recognizing these factors is key to addressing the problem. To validate the problem hypothesis thoroughly as a UX researcher, it is important to further explore user experiences through qualitative and quantitative studies such as surveys or interviews targeting how users construct and prioritize their daily tasks, the emotional and psychological impact of their task management approach, instances of decision overload, and analysis paralysis in task initiation, their coping mechanisms, or productivity strategies. So you can see what it's giving me. So it's telling me how to validate. All right. So now I'm going to take this information. The next thing you should do ideally is to conduct a user research. So I'll go to ChatGPT. Is to conduct a survey is to conduct a survey. So conduct a survey and then conduct a user interview. But we won't have time to do that today. But I'm just going to show you what that looks like so that you can create the deliverables and then you can go out there to do the survey. So there's a tool here called Prompt Maker. Before anything, before I prompt, I have to first of all create, my powered prompts using this Prompt Maker. So if you go to custom GPTs, if you go to ChatGPT, you won't see it. You just go to GPTs and search for Prompt Maker by Ruben Hassid. This is one of the major voices in AI right now. He's a major AI influencer on LinkedIn. You should check him out. So his name is Ruben Hassid. So first things first, I'm going to craft something here. So by default, it is GPT-5 thinking mode. So here's what I'm going to do. So this is for UX research. Working and validating working on validating this problem. Here are the results of quick desk research I just completed. So I'll put it in quotation marks. These are the sources. It has verifiable sources. That's why I use Perplexity to make sure that it's not hallucinating. ChatGPT can do the same too, but Perplexity is a very good tool when it comes to doing research. If there was time, I would have done deep research and told it that, you know what, go to so and so sources, Reddit and all of that to give me evidences. But I just want to show us how to go about it. So let's take it and put it here. So I put it in between, and then now I want to further validate this by conducting surveys and user interviews using principles from the book, The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick. So this is a quick and dirty prompt. It's not a properly, but I want to give it as much information as possible. Then you know how to structure user interview questions, quick, impactful survey questions, evaluation criteria. So I'll just give it this. I'm going to wait for it to generate the prompt for me. So what I'm doing now is not asking it to do it for me. I'm asking it to generate the prompt. So this is the prompt. So it's telling me, look at what it's doing, act as a senior. So this is how to craft prompts. So next thing, why I said evaluation criteria is that I need to be able to verify what it has done. So objective, you produce a set of high signal, non-leading user interview questions. In the 12-week program, we are going to go deep into prompt engineering, and then we are also going deep into verification. A set of high signal, non-leading user interview questions and moderator guide to validate a quick, impactful survey, 6 to 8 minutes, less than 20 items. If I'm not satisfied with this, if I want the survey to be less than 5 minutes, I can ask it to modify. I want the survey to be 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, because of attention span. Also include follow-up action items. Such as problem so let's see. So this is deliverable number 1. So we are going to take this. So measurement plan, primary signals. So these are the things we are looking out for when we do the survey interviews. We are going to survey 8 to 12 across different segments. Analysis steps, clean and segment, role, task, volume, sequence. So these are all the things that will help us do very deep research. You know, never ask users, these are constraints. Never ask users would do or would you like, ask what they did recently. Seek receipts, time, money, artifacts. Avoid compliments or opinions. Keep all examples anchored to recent specific episodes. Ensure the survey is truly less than 5 minutes via item count, word brevity. Deliver everything in a clean copy-pastable section with plain language. So I'm just going to copy this now. Then I'm going to take it into a fresh. The truth is that AI doesn't make us work less. It even makes us work more, but it makes us work more effectively and more accurately. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to use Canvas. Then I'm going to give it the prompt. Each deliverable should be in a separate box. So wait for this. So while we are waiting, we're going to move on to the next thing, which is our magic prompts. So this is the screener. So this is for our survey. Quick survey. Then interview, 30 to 35 minutes. So when you are doing interviews, this is just to guide. We are going to go deep into interviews during our this thing. We are going to, in the content that you're going to have in our live class, we are going to have, interview scenarios where you have two people conducting interviews, and things like that. So you will know how to do interviews, and then you also practice it yourself as well. So these are what the questions look like. So it's giving us good questions, bad questions, how we should ask the question, how we should not ask questions. So that's one. So let's go back to the script of our slides, and then let's, I'm not going to use the prompt maker for now. I'm just going to go straight, create something else. Save time. So these are the questions we're going to ask out there. So but I want us to go straight into, so the expected output. Let's see what happens. So we've done the market analysis. And this canvas. I like to add to canvas so that it won't be messy. So here we are looking at the quick insights. So user segment, remote workers, 25 to 45 years. Primary job to be done. Knowledge workers, distributed teams, tech marketing, consulting. So these are three different user segments. So primary jobs to be done. Start the day with clarity on priorities. Balance personal versus work tasks. Avoid always on stress. Current pain points. Task overload from multiple tools. If there was time, I would have asked you to give me evidence, sources of evidence of these things, so that it doesn't just come up with these things. I'm able to see, but I want to assume that this is accurate. Task overload from multiple tools. Difficult priority, prioritizing urgent versus important, mental fatigue from context switching, existing alternatives, Asana, Trello, Todoist, this is just like me. Estimated willingness to pay. That's if, assuming we've done our research, to validate this. This is just based on what ChatGPT thinks, based on its own research. But for me, if there was time, I would ask it, provide sources of this, don't just, so I'll be sure if it's actually communicating of those things, or there's actually proof, maybe by going out there to see what people are talking about. Then actionable insights, position task body as a smart daily focus compass. Integration with Slack, Teams, calendar sync is critical. Stress relief messaging resonates. Students 18 to 25 years, university or grad school, balancing coursework, part-time jobs, or personal life. So there are primary jobs to be done. They want to be able to organize their study and work schedules, prioritize assignments and exams, track deadlines across classes. Current pain points, they're overwhelmed by assignments, procrastination due to unclear first steps, struggle to balance social life and academics. They use tools like Google Calendar, Notion, Microsoft to do paper planners. Their estimated willingness to pay is 3 to 7, although this is relative to geography, but I want to assume people in the United States or in the UK. Students are cost sensitive, offer a freemium plan with gamified streaks, upsell premium, AI study prioritization plus reminders, partnership with universities if possible. Then we have freelancers. Those are people within the ages of 25 to 40 years. They are self-employed. They are mostly in the design, creative space, basically, and on the tech space, managing multiple clients. Their primary jobs to be done is prioritizing client deliverables, managing shifting deadlines, avoid missing billable work, current pain points, unpredictable workflow, juggling multiple clients or projects, admin tasks, eat time. The tools they use, Trello, ClickUp, Airtable, pen and paper, their willingness to pay is $10 to $20 because, of course, it's more of a running cost for them. Emphasize never miss a client deadline. AI-based prioritization when deadlines shift. Strong value in solo productivity plus client trust. So let's move on to the next. So we have our deliverable now. So the next thing is, okay, we have other personas, but for now we have to pick one. We have executives, they have their own needs. I'm going to share this with us. We have entrepreneurs as well. They have their own needs. So the key takeaways from this: students are price sensitive, so we need a freemium plan for them. Executive and entrepreneurs, this is the highest monetization potential. Market early adopters here. Remote workers and freelancers, mid-range, rely on integrations to differentiate. So if you want to, differentiate our products, we need to allow integration with existing products. And then universal job to be done, clarity on what matters now. Messaging should hammer simplicity, focus, and stress relief. So because of time, let's move on to the next thing before we now start building. In reality, these things take time. It takes hours. So let's continue with the next one. The next thing is going from research to strategy. So raw insights for strategic decisions. So here is how we transform task body research into actionable product strategy. So our target users are remote workers feeling overwhelmed by competing priorities. So we've chosen our target users. We have all the insights to analyze and all of that, but we've picked one target user. The core problem is that decision paralysis. They have decision paralysis when facing 20 plus daily tasks without clear prioritization. Our strategy bets is that if we show the top 3 daily priorities, 7-day retention improves by 40%. So that means if we're able to show the top 3 priorities to our users, with the product, then we are going to see a potential 7-day retention rate improvement of 40%. And then what's the success metric that we are going to be focusing on? Weekly active users who complete at least one prioritized task daily. So that means, it's not just about having a to-do list or being able to have priority tasks, but being able to complete at least 1 out of 3 of those tasks. So what we are basically doing is that we are trying to keep everything focused. Okay, what is the most important thing to focus on? The one thing. So the strategy framework is target user, problem definition, strategic bets, success metric, and risk assessment. So the next step is we are going to prototype the demo. So the objective here is to validate usability and core user flows before writing a single line of code. So we are going to use different tools. We use VCLI, AI-powered wireframing for mockups. UIZard can also be used to transform sketches into interactive prototypes. So and then we can also use ChatGPT as well, or Gemini. And then the current task flow, we are going to add 5 tasks, click prioritize, for the users will add 5 tasks. And once you click prioritize, they'll be able to view the top 3, mark 1 complete, see strict updates, and then usability test scripts. If you are going to test it with the users, give users the flow, observe confusion pain points, capture direct codes and completion times. Then the success criteria, 80% completion rate, under 2 minutes to complete flow. Positive sentiment on prioritization feature. So what that means is that if users add the 5 tasks and they click prioritize and they view the top 3, and they're able to complete 1 task, within that session, and the mark as complete, then that is success for us, right? So we're going to build the prototype live. Of course, unfortunately, we won't be able to do usability testing right here, but at least we'll show us what is possible. So let's go back to this place. So we are leveraging multiple things here. So we are going to go back to ChatGPT. So we're just going to say something here. We're going to say our target user the remote workers feeling overwhelmed by competing priorities. Our core problem identified is decision paralysis when facing 20 plus daily tasks without clear prioritization. Our strategy bet is if we show the top 3 daily priorities, 7-day retention, So all these are just assumptions. You have to prove them by 40%. So success metric, weekly active users who complete this one prioritized task daily. So our strategy framework. So here as an experienced product manager and one-man startup founder, your delivery rules are one, define problem. Okay, so we already have that already, so there's no need. Design a simple, low fidelity prototype. Any we want to. So sorry. Because there won't be time to use Visily. Visily will take time. Starting with one, the user flow, a simple user flow diagram. Ideally, we are supposed to do road mapping and all, but because we are prototyping, user flow diagram. True. A simple wireframe. Costing on the core task flow. Adds 5 tasks. True. Sometimes I'll do all these things in the Google Doc and then I'll transfer it 2. Step 1. Because one thing about AI is I need to give it clarity. User clicks, prioritize. Step 3. User videos, top 3 tasks. Step 4. User marks. It's step 5. User checks streak, see streak updates. I don't have the full requirements fleshed out yet, but we're just going to. Then so B, design simple wireframe. Reflect user flow. So we're going to put it in the canvas. And the reason why we are doing this is that we're going to take that wireframe, we're going to take that user flow, we're going to put it in V0 or Lovable, and we're going to build something. We don't know what the user experience, user interface will be, so we're going to rely on Lovable for that. We're just going to focus on the user experience for now. So let's feed it. I didn't add, so this is the contextual user flow diagram. So it has drafted it. So what we can do is that we might now design. This is not very good at designing, but let's go to Gemini. Let's try Gemini. Design the web. Sure. Start listening. So this is what it's designing for us, but I cannot work with this. Yeah. So this is what it's designing for us, basically. ASCII layouts. So I think we are going to use another model called Sora. ChatGPT is not the best at image generation, at diagramming or things like this. So we are going to use Gemini. So let's see what it's going to do. see what is going to do first without. It's basically as well, it's just time. Can't do it like that. So I have to use, let's see if we can use nano banana. So personally, I'll use VCD or UIZ. So just time.
Should we try?
Sorry? You might just jump straight to building the product. High fidelity prototype. Yeah, sorry, Abdul, I missed your statement.
I think that Visily can also help us to design the low fidelity prototype if we request it to do so.
Yes. So the thing is that I don't use the AI generator, I use the templates. Because if I think it might require me to upgrade or something. So, I think I'll have to see. Let's try. It's been a while. It's similar to Figma. So let's try the using the AI. Okay, so design intuitive. Yeah. Based on sense. And to be able to read the ASCII file. So let's run it. So this is what Nano Banana did for us. But we can't use this for anything. So we can put this and put it into. So let's see what this guy does for us. So the reason why we are doing this wireframe is so that we can actually take that, add it to the feature specs and add it to Lovable so that we can, or V0, and then it will have enough context. So it designs what we want, not just designs anything. Also, it develops what we want, not just develops anything. And then we can take that and test with users. So that's the fast track to prototyping now, or from 0 to MVP because of AI. In the past, you have to spend more to do this, design wireframes, take the wireframes to the users. But in the age of AI, you can use that, real working prototype to actually test with users. So it's actually designing a mock-up for us instead. I think it's the higher fidelity, the better. So there are just 3 flows. Okay, so back to the board. So this is actually very good. Okay, so this is it. So it has designed the high fidelity, the medium fidelity for us as a mobile app. So, or a mobile friendly app. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to export this similar to Canva. Export selection as a PNG. I'll take the second one. So in terms of the development or prototyping tools, there are several options, but I will go with personally. I will go with V0 or AI Studio. And the reason is because AI Studio has a way, it's very easy to integrate AI features into AI Studio. That's what's Lovable. Lovable, you need to start setting it up with the backend, and you need to start integrating with Firebase and all of that. So, but we are going to use AI Studio, Google AI Studio. So let's look at these three. So now what we need to do is we need to come up with a feature specs. Now, I have the mockups for my prototype. I want to use an AI builder building flow, such as Lovable or V0 to build the actual MVP. Now, write a clear as a product manager. Write a clear feature spec document or a short, simple documents. I call it feature spec or PRD. That's simply what I want. Also, provide user acceptance criteria. Testing internally. So I'm going to give it to prompt maker. I know it sounds like a lot, but the better the prompts, the better. The more professional the prompts, the better. Can use this, I'm sorry. Let me go back. If I'm going to feed it to this, that means all of the information we have on the chat, I have to put it in PDF and feed it. So let me just continue. So let me just use this, because it's going to take a longer time. If I'm going to use it in prompt maker, that means I have to have a PDF. All these things, I have to put it in PDF so that it has context. So this is the feature specs document. So it focuses on the goals, build a lightweight AI-powered task prioritization MVP that helps overwhelm remote workers, reduce decision paralysis by surfacing the 3 daily priorities. Scope, task input, enters 5+ tasks manually, input via text field, multi-line, add line by line, option to edit or delete before prioritization, AI prioritization. On clicking prioritize, system selects the top 3 tasks, display top 3 in ranked order. Task completion, users can mark task as complete, visual feedback. Streak tracking. After completing a task, show feature streak updates. So all of this, screen 1, so I'm going to add this, screen 2, I'm going to add this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this and put it in a Google Doc. So let me create a Google Doc. And then I'll go to, this can work for us. Then I'll go to Google AI Studio. And the reason why I'm using Google AI Studio is that it's going to be faster for us and it's going to be easier to integrate the AI features using Gemini without actually setting up API keys. But if you are going to use Lovable, we have to go out and you have to go back and set the Gemini API keys, get the API keys, set the environment variables in a backend system called Supabase. Supabase is basically what manages our backend authentication, edge functions, storage. So that all that process. We are going to look at everything in the 12 weeks course. But for now, because of time, we're just going to use Google AI Studio for easier implementation of the AI features. So all that going back and forth with Supabase is going to take a lot of time. So let's just go straight to this. Is a new tool from Google, a very wonderful tool. So let's open Google Docs. And the reason why is that Google AI Studio supports PDF. I'm not sure if Lovable supports PDF. I think it supports only images. So let's paste. I'm going to name it Ask Body MVP. PRD. So I'll call it my product requirement documents. So here we have MVP. I'll call it MVP 1.0. Feature specs. Then I'll come here. So for the user acceptance testing, I'm going to move this somewhere. But let me leave it for now. So this is what I'm going to use as a check mark if it meets all those criteria. So let's move on to So I'm going to give you this context so that the AI understands what user acceptance is. So, but let me put this here as a sub tab. MVP 1.0 UAT. So for user acceptance testing, these are all the things it must meet. So I'm going to change all this to checkboxes. So this is this. So now we are ready to go. So we are going to focus on this. So we are going to convert this to PDF. And the good thing about tabs is that it's just that tab. So we are going to convert this to a PDF. So now let's go to Google AI Studio. So Google AI Studio, you can do many things. You can use Nano Banana. You can do so many things here. But what we are going to go to is we're going to go to Build. It's a free tool, completely free. There's no paywall. It's only when you want to use Google Cloud, to deploy in production. That's when you can use their free tier $300 for free for 3 months. They give it for you for free to use all the Google services. So that comes with Google Cloud. So it's when you want to deploy in production that you might need to, have a billing account. And then when you exhausted your $300 for 3 months credits, then you can now start paying as you use, basically for deployment and hosting services. But for now, everything is free, and it comes with Gemini Pro, Gemini 2.5 Pro. So it's actually very interesting. I don't know what Google is going to make out of it later, but let me just start with this. So I'm going to feed it with the prompt. Let's go back to ChatGPT. Let's take this out. I hope it won't fail us. So build build a working MVP for productivity app. Made a mistake. There's something I've not added. Let me go back. So I'm supposed to add the mockups or the medium fidelity prototypes. Let's go back. So this is screen one. Screen one should be add tasks. Add tasks and prioritize. Then screen two is complete, top 3 complete and complete. Well, we are almost out of time. So we select something else. So this should be top 3 priorities. And the good thing is you can edit this. Top 3. So it's just a very simple MVP. Then the third part is straight confirmation. Okay, so good. So we are done. So we're going to convert it to PDF now and delete the old one. Okay, so let's see what happens. But one thing about this tool, just like most other tools, is that you can actually see how its thinking process. You can actually see how it's thinking. But let's see, it's building the file structure. So if you don't know anything about coding or software development, so it's using a programming language called TypeScript. It's basically a full stack programming language. It's actually is a programming language based off JavaScript. JavaScript itself is a very strong object-oriented programming language. It's used mostly for front-end development. So we have JavaScript, we have React, we have different types of JavaScript libraries. We have React, we have Vue, we have Angular, and then we have the backend framework, which is called Node.js, which handles the backend. But this tool doesn't build the backend; it builds basically a synthetic backend and a front end. So that's why I'm using TypeScript. So TypeScript is actually a very powerful programming language for AI. So when you are trying to build AI applications, AI-powered applications, TypeScript is the go-to language. Python can be used for the backend. TypeScript can be used for both front end and back end, although Python is more powerful for the back end. But it's used mostly when you are doing like core machine learning stuff. But for simple apps like this, TypeScript does the job. So it does both the front end and the back end. Although we are not implementing the back end, full back end here, we are writing some of the functions here, but we are not doing the full back end development. If you want to deploy in production, we would have to use a tool called. We can use different tools. We can use Firebase. We can use and if you want to store for storage authentication, maybe users want to log in, storage authentication, and database, then we need a tool like Firebase or Supabase. So those are the popular backend tools. But I always prefer to use Firebase because you can use it for free. You can. It's even if you are going to pay for it, it's still part of the free tier that you can enjoy with Google. So the $300 Google gives you for free for 3 months to use on the Google cloud infrastructure. You can use it for Firebase hosting. You can use it for Firestore, which is the database. You can use it for their storage, and all of the other services. So Firebase is used to be used for mobile development or deploying mobile apps, but you can also use it for web apps as well. And then we have Supabase. Supabase also has a free version. Supabase, you can use the free version, but with very limited, bandwidth, and limited space. But you can do a lot with it. At least if you want to test with a few users, the free plan can work. And then if you want to upgrade, then you upgrade. But the thing about Supabase is that if you don't use it, it's going to deactivate temporarily, and then you have to go back and activate it. So if you are using V0, you can integrate with Supabase. If you are using Lovable, it integrates with only Supabase. But with this guy, you can integrate with anything you want. So if I want to integrate with Supabase, I would have to export this code, put it somewhere. You maybe use like Cursor, and then, or tell it that you should write functions where it can call Firebase APIs. And then it uses that to, I provide the environment variables. Of course, another thing about coding or AI development is that never ever provide API credentials in a chat. That is a security no. Never ever use, like for instance, if you are trying to integrate it with a backend like Firebase or Supabase, of course you are going to have your your integration credentials. So or even if you are trying to integrate an AI model API, don't ever put it in a chat and say, oh, these are the credentials, implement it, or call this API, or configure my environment variables, which is .env file. And that .env file is basically supposed to be created manually. You put in all the environment variables there, and then you git ignore that file. Git ignore that file means that GitHub doesn't, your agent doesn't read the content of that file. So for security reasons, all the credentials are in your env files, separately. So it's the function within the code that actually calls the API, the env file, to get the API credentials. But your agent, which is the AI tool, doesn't have access, right? So it's quite. I know it's a lot to talk about because this is a bit technical. But during the main course, we're going to go deeper into some of these things, in depth. But if you want something very straightforward, V0 helps with that. I will show you later in the class how you can use V0, how you can set up your Firebase. It's very it's more straightforward than using Lovable actually. Setting up your Supabase and setting up your Supabase and setting up. So it has built it. This is it. So let's say I want to remove this task. I can add a new task. Amazing. Prepare for class. Then I can prioritize. So let's see how that's going to work. So it has prioritized the top 3. But the question is, what does it use to prioritize? So if I want to iterate this now, so let's say I've reviewed sprint task, I prepared presentation slides, mark as complete. So you can see my progress. I can view my priorities and mark this as complete. So I've completed today. If I go tomorrow again, I'll also do that. So what I'm going to do is that as part of this thing, we're going to provide the prompts, provide all this documentation, and I'll also give you access to this app to test, personally after this program. And then you can use that to get feedback. So that's basically, what we are doing in action. So it has actually built it, but I'm not satisfied with this. It built it as a mobile-only app. So I want it as a responsive app. For both desktop and mobile access. So let's prompt that. So if you want to look at the code structure, this is what it looks like. So this is the components folder where it has all the components, the front-end components, and then this is the hooks, basically for local storage, and then this is the index HTML for the structure, the TypeScript also for the structure, the metadata, and then the services. So this is the AI service, the Gemini service file, and all of that. So let's see what happens. I hope it doesn't mess it up. And then if you want to push it to GitHub, GitHub is a version control tool. We are also going to treat that in the 12-week program. So when you look at GitHub, GitHub is, if you are working with developers, if you notice, especially as a team, each person, does something called, we use GitHub as a repository where we store the code, and then each person has his own branch. So when each developer has their branch, whenever they are pushing updates, there's something we call pull requests. We create a pull request so that we can review the code, and then you can merge it to the main branch, and then that's what goes into production. So we can test, like for instance, you can have your production branch and you can have your development branch. Development branch is where you test things internally as engineers. Then when everything looks good, or even as a product manager can test in the development branch. And then once everything is good, and then you merge the PR, then that goes into production and it deploys automatically to the users. So that's what we call the main branch. So that tool is called GitHub for version control. If you're an engineer or you are familiar with that, then I'm sure so you can directly push it to GitHub. So I can push it to GitHub, but I have to save first. So let me wait. So I want it to be compatible with all devices. So I can do device test here. So let's wait. So I want to see what it has done. Of course, I can suddenly make your task body application responsive, so it provides an excellent experience on both mobile and desktop devices. I'll update the main application container. So this is basically more of a styling thing. So it uses Tailwind for the styling. So and then the TypeScript, core TypeScript file, but I'm still wondering. So I'll update the main application container to be full screen on mobile and transition to a centered card-like view on larger screens, ensuring all functionality remains smooth and accessible across screen sizes. So let's just wait. It's still doing its thing. So if you want to use V0, let me just move this somewhere else. So V0 is a freemium tool. You can use it for free. I think you can do 5 charts a day or something. So let's assume you can upload. It's just that here it has a very interesting thing. You can enhance the prompt. That's if you are not attaching, a spec document. So let me see. I don't know. Can I attach images? Well, I think I've already exhausted my free credits for the month, so I have to upgrade, unfortunately. So I can't do anything right now. So I'll have to log in with another account, but there's no time. But you can check out v0.app, play around with it, and then you'll be able to do so many things with it. I have a maximum number. You have a maximum number of credits you can use every month. So let's try Lovable while we are waiting for this guy here. So, okay, yes. So it has made the mobile a more responsive. So if it's on mobile, this is what it's going to look like. If it's on tab, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so this is the web app. I'm not satisfied yet, but let's just leave it for now. So the strict logic, let's see, it's giving me prompts. Refine the strict logic to correctly reset the strict if not prioritized task has been completed in a given day. even if the other tasks were there. We can't know yet until we test tomorrow, right? So I think, I'm not sure we can edit tasks. So it's also giving us a prompt. We can edit tasks. So add task editing. So I'm adding it in task input screen. So this is the file that handles that functionality, implement functionality to edit the text of existing tasks directly in the input screen. Ensure the edits are reflected in the tasks. So let's implement this change. So that's an improvement. So I myself am going to use this tool. And then I can also decide to, maybe if I test with a user might say, okay, how will it know which tasks are the top priorities for me? What are the criteria? So maybe it can ask me what's my main goal for the day, or what's most important. And then based on that, maybe it asks some onboarding questions. Right now, we don't have onboarding because it's still a prototype. By the time we want to implement into production, the feedbacks we get from the usability testing is what we will use to say, you know what, if you are going to do the onboarding, let's collect certain pieces of information about the user. And then that is going to be used to understand who the user is, what the user's priorities are. Maybe, for instance, the person is a freelancer, or the person is a remote worker, or whatever it is, or an entrepreneur. So you're going to use that information, that context, to prioritize what those top 3 tasks are. Right. So, but this is just a prototype. So, but eventually, when we get the feedback, then we can now use that feedback to refine using AI. So that is that. So let's see what has happened. Well, let's save it first. We have to save the app. So we want to see if we can edit the task. I don't want us to be too stuck here. We still have a whole lot to do actually. So it's not web this thing yet, web optimized yet to my taste, but I also understand that our prototypes are mobile based. So let's leave it. I think it's okay. Okay, so we can edit our tasks now. Let's see. So let's prioritize. So I'll pick this one. Let's say I'm working on this one first. Review sprint tasks are finished, mark as complete. Now I can see and view my priorities for today. I think I'm going to use this tool personally myself. I'm going to test it this week. So if I want to deploy, I'm just going to come here, save to GitHub first. I'll make it a public repository so that everybody can access the code. I'll call it, what was the name again? Task body. The professionals. Nice. Be public, but make it a private repo. That means it's not going to be accessible to the public, but anybody on GitHub can find that and see the code, the source code. So since it's for demonstration purposes, so I'm going to create a repo on GitHub. So if I want to move it to another tool, or maybe let's say I want to edit it elsewhere, I want to just edit the code live. I can always do it whatever I want to do. I'm not tied to just this tool. So if I want to deploy elsewhere, I can actually, once it's on GitHub, so it's asking me to commit the changes I made, stage and commit the changes I made to the main branch. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I've done that. So it's already on GitHub. The code is safely elsewhere on GitHub. And then if I want to deploy, so here, if I want, there are different options. As I moved it to GitHub, I can deploy elsewhere. I can deploy on Firebase. I can deploy if I don't want to use Google Cloud projects, or I can use an existing because I have a Google Cloud account already. So all I would just need to do is, these are my other Firebase projects. So I'm just going to look for Gemini here. So this is the one there's billing already and all of that. Okay, I think I have to set up billing separately. So let me just leave it. That's a long process. So, but at least the most important thing is that as it is right now, I can get people I can download the code directly to my computer as well, and then use Cursor something or VS Code to modify. And then I can also share. So if I share this link, I'll change advanced sharing permissions so that everybody can see it. So you can test it. But the thing is that when you are testing, you're only going to test it within AI Studio. But if I deploy, once I set up my billing and all of that, because the billing I have is not on this account, it's on my company account, my business account. So once I set it up, then you'll be able to see in production. So, but let's, so if I want to change this, just like every Google Doc, just change it from restricted to let's leave it for now. I'm going to share the link later because of time. But let's move on to the presentation. So now we have our prototype, right? So the next thing is to do our usability testing, and then we use the acceptance criteria and also, the success criteria. We'll first of all test based on acceptance criteria internally, and then we'll now use our success criteria during usability tests. So that's and then from prototype to learning. So the goal isn't perfection, it's rapid learning and risk reduction. Here's how we process prototype feedback into actionable development. So we capture the issues. So if I was to do this usability testing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a non-moderated test where I'll just invite the user, give them the link, and watch them. I would ask them to share their screen and then just watch them and see how they engage with the product, right? Document every confusion point, failed interaction, and user suggestion in a simple change log. Prioritize fixes. Address only issues that block the core value proposition. Ensure everything else goes to the backlog. Update and retest. Make critical changes quickly and test again with 2 to 3 new users. So all this is used, to improve our prototype and improve our eventual product. Then that's when we can now create our product backlog, update our backlog, and all of that. And it is important. So an example issue resolution problem. Prioritize button on clear to 60% of users. The solution is to rename to show my top 3 results. Sorry, I don't know, this thing I used is making it scattered. So the solution is to rename to show my top 3. So instead of saying prioritize, say show my top 3 tasks. So if users are confused, assuming users are confused, the solution is to show my top 3 tasks. And then the result is going to lead to 95% clarity in follow-up test. So this is just an example, right? So remember that fix what's critical for MVP success, but resist the urge to solve every problem. Look at now, Gemini was suggesting some things to me, do this, do that, do this. You need to resist that urge because it's going to tell you add this, add this, add this, add this. But sometimes I didn't think of being able to edit. But let's assume the user asks me that, oh, what if I make a mistake? What if I want to edit my task? So there are 2 options. I can delete the task and create another one, or I can just edit. But there are some other things there that you might be tempted to, but always resist that urge. Focus mostly on the most important things. So the goal is to validate core assumptions, not building the perfect interface. So let's move on to the next. We've actually done this already. So MVP with Lovable, we didn't use Lovable, we used Google AI Studio. Google AI Studio. So the objective is to ship a working shareable product slice that users can actually interact with and provide feedback on. So that's what I was trying to do by sharing the link and then deploying it in production. So once I deploy it, I can share the link with people, which is something I'm going to do with you guys after this session. So we define the MVP scope, sign up, add tasks. So for us to actually have the MVP that users can use, beyond prototyping, we have to be able to add, allow users to sign up so that we can know who is signing up. That means we are going to integrate the backend with it. It's not just going to be front end like this. We are also going to be able to have all of these features, where people can actually use, just like we showed earlier, and a shareable link, like the URL that we can share that, test.taskbody.com, and then people can test it. So the magic prompt, if I'm going to, go into production of this, I'll have to first of all go back and do my user research to make sure that I really validate that problem, before I actually invest in development. So this is the prompt, but we already did that already, deploy and share. So the only thing left for what we did in AI Studio is deployment. We've not deployed it because we have to start setting up backend, have to start setting up all those things, so for that will take time. So, we didn't show that, but the core of it, building the MVP itself, building the prototype and building the MVP is something we've already done. Right? And then when we run the tests, so the goal of building is to test. So when we run the test, users can complete the core flow, make sure that users can complete the core flow, which is being able to, add their tasks, prioritize their tasks and complete their tasks, and we have some placeholder AI logic works, uploads on mobile, and all of that. So in traditional development, this will take weeks, yes, or even months. But with AI and no-code tools, we'll have a working MVP in minutes or even hours. users can touch, click, and experience the core value proposition immediately. So beyond the MVP, delivery and requirements. So once you have validated your MVP, the next stage focuses on scaling the developments with clear requirements and sustainable delivery process. So the lightweight PRD, we've done that already, where you document user flows, acceptance. Here now, we'll now have to update the PRD with acceptance criteria, technical requirements without over-engineering things. And then we'll have a simple user stories, very important. Simple user stories, and then we'll ship small increments weekly in the sprint. So after we have the MVP or the simple prototype that we ship, then we'll continue to get feedback from users and add things to it. That's why we say product work is never done. We'll continue to get feedback and add things to it to improve the experience. First of all, before we can ship, we have to make sure that we have the authentication and sign-up process working. And then we have to make sure that users' data is secure. So we have to have a very robust backend. And that's why I pushed it to GitHub. So from GitHub, I can deploy to Firebase. I can set up the backend. I can do other things and write those edge functions. So an example story, user story, like we said, user stories help us to humanize that user or understand requirements from the user standpoint. So like, for example, as a busy professional, I can mark a task complete so that my daily streak updates so I can actually update my daily streak and I feel motivated to maintain momentum. Acceptance criteria, task statuses change to complete, streak counter increments, visual feedback confirms action, completed task moves to separate list. The reason why it's easy for us to quickly is because it's a simple version. But by the time we start adding layers of complexity to it, we need to have this requirements, acceptance criteria, user stories. And these things are something we call a backlog. You have the central product backlog, and then we have the sprint backlog. So every sprint or every increment, our sprint might be 1 week. Like in the 12 weeks program, each sprint is going to be one week. So every week we're going to have something, a deliverable, and everyone is working towards that deliverable. So we must have our backlog at some point during the development or delivery. We must have our backlog where we have the user stories, we have the acceptance criteria, and then we have the related features as well and epics. So the go-to-market strategy. So for us to launch, product managers own more than building. We also own adoption. When users use the product, a great product that nobody discovers is a failed product. And that's the truth. It's not about building, it's about people using the product and getting value. So positioning framework, if we were to set up our go-to-market strategy or launch strategy, who are we targeting? Remote workers and entrepreneurs. The problem we are solving is daily task overhaul. The promise we are delivering is AI-powered focus. The proof is 40% better task completion. So we are going to have a baseline where, when we are engaging with the users during usability testing, user interviews, we need to have an idea. We're not going to ask them directly, but we need to have an idea of what the baseline is. How long does it take for them to complete task? What is their, we'll use some specific metrics to actually understand what that baseline is. And then we will now be able to measure that, okay, now maybe on an average, most users are only able to complete 10% of their tasks. We look at the last 1 month or last 2 months. But after using, a week after using, or 2 weeks after using Task Body, they are able to complete 40% of their tasks. So that can be a way to measure. And then the launch page elements, we have the compelling headline. So we are going to have like a launch page, like a landing page, clear subheading, product demo. So the landing page is going to be marketing or a go-to-market, part of the go-to-market strategy. We have the product demo, maybe a video, GIF, images, call to action, social proof, comprehensive FAQ. We could also do channel strategy, write LinkedIn articles, relevant communities, personal email lists. You can use platforms like Product Hunts to launch it, influencer partnerships in the productivity space. So launch small, measure everything, and double down on channel. So that's why I said you can do fist launch to a small group. You can be maybe the people you spoke to before, or you can have something called a distribution product or a distribution tool that is not the main tool, but is used to get feedback or used to provide value upfront. It could be a template, it could be something, or we call it lead magnet as well. So you can use that before you launch your product. You can actually use that to generate a lot of leads and then just launch those leads. If the leads are significant, maybe 100, 200, you can launch them, measure, double down on the channels that delivers qualified users. Task Buddies GTM might start with a single LinkedIn post in a productivity community before expanding to paid channels. So before you start going into paid marketing strategies, focus on the free marketing strategies, especially, word of mouth, personal branding and all of that. So this is not, I don't know, I'm able to view properly. So if for us to be able to measure performance, so this is just a diagram. Unfortunately, it's not showing the full thing. I don't know why PowerPoint is doing this. So data transform products guesses into facts. So the right analytics setup turns behavior into actionable product insights. So in the program, the 12 weeks course, we are going to be looking at tools like Pendo, Amplitude, and we're going to use simple tools like Microsoft Clarity, Google Analytics as well. So these are some sample event instrumentation. So if I was to implement on Pendo or Amplitude, so these are the event instrumentation the data points I'm going to set up. So sign up, add task, view top 3, complete task. So I want to be able to use this, to actually monitor the, what is going on. And then my North Star metric, weekly active users who complete at least one AI prioritized task daily, And then my funnel analysis, I'm going to look at the funnel, sign up process, add task, that's the acquisition process, add task, which is the activation, view top 3, complete task, activation. One completed task for me is activation, right? And then retention, how many more tasks are they completing every day? And then the iteration cycle, weekly data review, hypothesis formation, A/B test, measurement, and implementation for iteration. So I would have loved to show the full this thing, but I think the application I'm using is cutting it. So let's move on to the next one. Almost done. So tools that you can use, we're going to look at that then. Now let's talk about the AI-powered product management course. I don't know if Abdul wants to take this or, if he wants me to wrap up.
Yeah, just wrap up. So I'll just take any final comments at the end of it.
All right. So this is a 12-week intensive program. It's a 12-week intensive, program. It's a practical, not theory. We are going to actually be doing things. Everybody's going to have their own portfolio projects that they're going to be working on. They're going to, go from problem. We are going to be discussing every weekend. So it's going to be recorded sessions, and then we are also going to have live sessions every weekend. So every weekend we come, you bring in your ideas or your problems or your portfolio solutions, and then we review it together. So we are going to be working in very small cohorts of just 10 to 20 people. Maximum. We are not going to be accepting more than 10 to 20 people per cohort. And this allows us to focus on you and also to create a peer learning group where everybody can collaborate and learn from each other. And the guaranteed outcomes is that you'll be shipping your own working MVP, and you will also be creating your product-led portfolio, which you can use for interviews or you can use, for anything else. You also have your another deliverable is that you must, before that 12 weeks or by that 12th week, you must show traction with your product. So it's not just building the product, you must be able to onboard users or generate revenue. It's either of the two or both. So even if you cannot generate revenue, you must be able to, show traction. Like, okay, you're going from 0 to 50 users or to 100 users or to whatever amount of users or to 10 users. So you must be able to show traction, growth, or revenue potential, and then you get a certificate of completion. So what are we offering? 100% practical focus, where you build real products, not just presentations. You're not just doing, you're actually building a real working product. And in most product management jobs, especially in big tech and some other very powerful scale-ups, they don't just want to see your PowerPoint portfolio anymore. That's not enough. They want to actually see evidence that you actually built product, especially if it's AI-powered products. So most of the products, like I said, it's not really about whether you use AI or not. It's about what problem are you solving. If you can use AI to solve the problem, great. And if you can show that, then that's a plus for you in for your job interviews. And then you can also start your own business. This bootcamp is a segue to starting your own business, because if you start generating traction and you start generating revenue, what else? So it can actually grow into becoming a business. But the most important thing is that we would work together in validating those problems to make sure you're actually building the right thing to solve the right problem. Because if you are solving the right problem for the right people, definitely you are going to achieve business success. So we are going to have recorded content plus live weekly support sessions every weekend, and then hands-on practice. And then you will launch your MVP by the end, and you will also grow your MVP as well, and you will ship a working product by graduation. So the investment into this, I call it an investment, because you're actually investing in building your own career and building your own business, is $1,097 US one time. For early bird, early bird is limited to just a few days or a few weeks. If you are if you take advantage of the early bird, Abdul will share more details on, when the time frame is. But if you take advantage of the early bird, you'll be getting it at 1,797, which is about, which is a reasonable discount. So take advantage of this, and you can pre-register. Abdul will be providing the details of, the form where you can pre-register to show your interest. And what is the takeaway from this? Whether you enroll or not, we want to give you value. And what is the value we are sharing here? Or what is the value we want you to go on with? We want you to not just learn and stop here. We don't want you to just stop here. We want you to actually, go out there, try a research prompt like what we did today. Pick any product idea, run an AI research prompt we demonstrated, spend 30 minutes exploring user segments and pain points. Also, go out if possible, do user interviews, do surveys to validate some of those assumptions or some of those problems, and then come up with a simple feature specs document or a simple strategy of, okay, what do you want to focus on now? What do you want to, what does the MVP look like? Sketch a prototype workflow. You can use VCD, you can use hand-drawn, use any of the AI tools. Keep it simple, 3 to 5 steps maximum. Don't make the user flow more than 5 steps. Build something simple with Lovable, V0, or Google AI Studio. I'll recommend you use V0, Lovable, or Google AI Studio. Although Google AI Studio, if you want to deploy, deployment is a different ballgame, which we are going to teach. But I'm hoping that by the time the course starts, maybe Google might have made deployment easier, but deployment is feasible. It's just that you have to learn how to deploy on Firebase, which is actually simpler compared to setting up Supabase. But you can use any of these tools, even if you cannot deploy, just build it like we did, test it, with people, and share. You can also share with us as well in the WhatsApp channels. And then remember that the difference between learning and transformation is application. And if you want to master, or if you want to, if you really want to get value from this session, it's not about just being here to listen, even though we appreciate it, but it's about taking it and practicing with it. So we encourage you to post your key takeaways on LinkedIn or the WhatsApp group and tag us, Smart PM School on LinkedIn, and we encourage you to also share what you know with others. So thank you so much once again for listening. Thank you so much for your patience, and I know we've gone beyond the time. Apologies for that. I hope you got some value. So thank you so much once again, and feel free to bring in your questions.
Thank you very much, Said. So yeah, we only have about I'm sure less than 20 people left, because people were leaving and joining all the time. But I think that this is one of the most powerful master classes that we've had, right? So and definitely I've been getting a few inquiries too as well. So we just have 3 questions, right, before we round up the whole session. There was one from Yoande. I'm not sure if Yoande is still here, but we'll just take all the questions. We have 3 questions. We have one. It was a clarification from Yoande where she's asking, just to quickly clarify, are the success metrics the same as your benefits realization? Then we have 2 questions from Ishtiak. Do you want to respond to that quickly?
Yes. So I'll start with you, Andy. Thank you for your question. So I don't know what benefit realization is, but if based on the simple definition, or maybe based on the simple understanding of benefit realization, I would say yes. But it's I would say the difference is that success metrics are measurable. It's something that you can measure, right? So so if that is what benefit realization means, then I would say it's in line.
All right, thank you very much for that. The second question from Ishtiak was, what's the difference between Perplexity and ChatGPT, and how do you choose between the AI tools?
That's a very good question as well. So Perplexity is like Google search plus ChatGPT. It's a real-time research tool. However, its glory days was last year, 2 years ago, but now ChatGPT has now introduced web search version. That was before ChatGPT had web search. So before, it used to be, whatever cutoff date, was, the ChatGPT was trained on was what you are limited to. But now ChatGPT can go out there to do research. However, Perplexity is still very good when it comes to research, deep research, going out there to actually, let's say, for instance, you want to understand what people are saying. You want to do some form of social listening. You want to know what people are, you want to get evidence-based insights from maybe platforms like Reddit, to see what people are really talking about. Perplexity is more powerful with that. And I know that ChatGPT also has the deep research tool. It can go online, it can do some research, but it's not as robust as Perplexity. So I'll say Perplexity, is basically like ChatGPT plus Google search together. And then ChatGPT now has capabilities of Perplexity, but not specialized in what Perplexity does. So Perplexity is more powerful when it comes to being able to, do some really good research. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, we'll just go on with the third one quickly. So before I go on to the third one, I dropped a form in the chat box for those of us that might be interested in registering for the course. You might just fill the form and we'll follow up with you, share all the details with you as well. So the third question is this. When you're using GitHub, how can multiple people and multiple repositories be managed within GitHub if you're developing AI tools, especially if you're now from a non-dev background, using AI tools to tweak your application?
Yeah, I actually love the question. Unfortunately, it's something, or let me say, fortunately and unfortunately, it's best demonstrated than discussed. I don't know if we have that time to demonstrate, but what I would just say is that it's actually very straightforward. It's not complicated. Once you have your GitHub account, if it's a private repo, then you can add people to the repo. You can invite people, using their email addresses, and then they have access to the repo, so they can access the source code. And then if you want them to, let's say each person is working, they are working on the app itself, but you don't want everything to be modeled up. Each person can create their own branch. So you can create it manually on GitHub, or each member can clone the repo. So when they clone the repo, you can use VS Code, you can use GitHub, VS Code plus GitHub Desktop, or you can use tools like Cursor. So once you clone the repo, you can even use command line. So once you clone the repo, you have the file, the source code on your local computer. And then when you want to commit your changes, you can actually create your own branch and commit to that branch. So for instance, Ishak, has his own branch. There's the dev branch, there's the central dev branch, there's the Ishak branch, there's the 20 branch, there's the Nkechi branch, and then there's the actual dev branch, which all, you can merge everything to the actual dev branch. And then we have the main branch, which is a production branch. That's the one that connects to the, live deployments. So you always want to make sure that you separate the dev from the production, right? The dev is like your staging environment. And then each of the developers have their own branches. So as they are working on updates, they can commit to the remote branch. And then you can merge it with the central dev branch, or the, before it's now merged to the production branch. So yes, you can easily add people, and then each person can actually create, or you can create those branches for each individuals, and then you can, they can clone the repo, and then they can commit their changes to their own branches seamlessly. So that's something that we're also going to demonstrate in the live 12 weeks in the 12 weeks program as well, the practical 12 weeks program.
Well, thank you very much, Said. I think that we've taken a lot of time this evening. And like I said, it has been very exciting. I'm sure that everyone here agrees with us. So one last thing that I'll share with everyone before we go. If you would like to follow us, follow all our updates on all our upcoming sessions, I'm dropping the link to our WhatsApp channel in the chat box right now, so that you can do so. Go ahead and follow. All of those that have been on the channel have all been getting all these updates, and always been able to get, in fact, you get all the updates first before anybody else on the channel, even before the people that are on LinkedIn, because that's where we're sharing all those live updates and all the offers, job offerings, and everything that comes in that we're trying to share with everybody. Our goal is to ensure that you're on the cutting edge of all of the developments that are happening right now. We don't pick random topics. We pick topics that we know that are going to be life-changing. So these master classes, which we are sure that you can testify at, top-notch master classes. I doubt if anyone has attended the master class that is like this master class, where we were basically demoing AI products and how to use them live. right? So, like I said, you can always use the link below to join the channel. If you're interested in registering for the course, by all means, use the form. We're going to reach out to you, and then we'll help you to join the team and set up, and also keep you informed regarding the beginning of class. We're looking to start our sessions by the last week of October, right? That's when we're looking to start. That will give us enough time to prepare all of the resources that you need to participate in the course, and that will also be provided for you. So thank you very much, everyone. Saeed, thank you very much. This has been one of the most interesting sessions so far. So thank you, and it has been nice having all of you. Please, by all means, join our WhatsApp channel. Leave us a comment on LinkedIn. We're going to appreciate all of that. Thank you very much. And if you're on the channel, you're going to also get a recording of this video. In fact, it's going to be on our YouTube channel, and then we'll share the link with you too. So you can always access it. Even if you were not recording this session, you can always go back to it and see it, so you don't miss out on anything. Yeah, and go on, sir.
I wanted to mention that some of the tools or artifacts we have here, like the PRD, the actual prototype, you're going to have access to it as well. We're going to send the links in the course of the week so that you can actually test. If you are willing to give us feedback as well, feel free. We can collaborate on it together as well. So we're going to share all of that, including the ChatGPT prompts and the ChatGPT chat history and all of that. You have access to that as well, and the Google Doc.
All right. Thank you very much, Saeed. So I guess that's going to be all for today. If we have any questions, please, by all means, I guess I'll just type our email here, just in case anyone has any questions and they haven't joined the channel yet to get all that info. So info@smallvest.com. Sorry, .org, not .com. All right. That's where we're going to be rounding up today. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. It has been wonderful having you all. Have a wonderful evening, or whatever time it is where you are. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye, everyone.